The story of Prince Harry is often told through the lens of public spectacle, royal duties, and media frenzy. To the world, he has been a prince, a soldier, a philanthropist, and a husband. He has made headlines for his daring exploits, his charity work, and more recently, for the unprecedented decisions he and Meghan Markle have made to step back from the royal spotlight. Yet behind the headlines, behind the cameras and flashing lights, there lies a deeply human story, a story of love, loss, and heartbreak that has remained largely private. And today, Harry has broken that silence in a way that leaves the world stunned. He has revealed that the woman he once loved most, the woman who was truly his soulmate, was not the person he is married to now. The woman was Chelsea Davy. For many, the name Chelsea Davy might evoke only fleeting recognition, a figure occasionally mentioned in tabloids during her past relationship with Harry. But for Harry, she represented something far deeper than any headline could capture. From the moment they met, there was a connection, a bond that transcended the superficialities of wealth, fame, or status. She was someone who understood him, who saw him as he was, not as the world expected him to be. Their relationship was a rare thread of normalcy woven into the often stifling tapestry of royal life. Yet, as Harry has now revealed, forces beyond their control, forces embedded in the expectations of royalty, the relentless gaze of the media, and the subtle pressures of a life lived under scrutiny, pushed them apart. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine, for a moment, being in Harry's position, a young man burdened with the weight of a family legacy, raised to understand duty above all else, yet compelled by the deepest of human desires, the need to love and be loved in return. Chelsea was that love. She was the person who could calm him, make him laugh genuinely, and offer solace from the pressures that few could ever comprehend. Their shared moments, their quiet conversations, their escapes to private corners of the world where they could exist without public expectation. All of this painted a picture of what a real connection could be for Harry. And yet, the very life that afforded him opportunity also dictated limitations, constraining his ability to fully embrace that love. In speaking about Chelsea, Harry has described a depth of feeling that few would associate with a prince whose life is often public, scripted, and analyzed by millions. He did not speak lightly. He did not use vague platitudes. He acknowledged, in ways that are both moving and devastating, that he loved Chelsea with a sincerity and intensity that he has rarely experienced again. And yet, despite this love, their relationship faltered. Not due to lack of affection, not due to betrayal, but because of external pressures and the unyielding expectations that come with being a member of the royal family. For viewers, this revelation might provoke a jolt of shock, even disbelief. The image of Harry as a dashing, confident prince does not immediately align with that of a man quietly mourning a love he could not hold. But that is exactly what makes this story resonate so profoundly. It is human, it is raw, and it is painfully relatable in ways that transcend the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace. The journey of Harry and Chelsea began like many romances, with a spark of attraction and the promise of companionship. Yet, unlike ordinary couples, their courtship unfolded under the unrelenting spotlight of public attention. Every dinner, every appearance, every seemingly private gesture was scrutinized, dissected, and debated. For Harry, this was more than a nuisance. It was a constant test of endurance. The intensity of royal life can erode even the strongest bonds, and for Chelsea and Harry, it created friction that neither could fully anticipate. The pressures of duty, the subtle nudges from advisors, and the ever-present awareness of royal tradition created a scenario in which love was constantly measured against obligation, and often, obligation won. What makes Harry's confession particularly striking is the contrast it draws with his later life. Many observers have assumed that his eventual marriage to Meghan Markle represented the culmination of his personal quest for love. But Harry's candid admission reframes that narrative entirely. Meghan, according to Harry, was not his first love. She was not the woman who captured his heart in the way Chelsea did. She was, in a sense, a replacement, a partner who aligned with certain expectations and whose presence fit into a narrative shaped by both public perception and the unspoken rules of royal propriety. The distinction Harry draws is delicate yet deeply poignant. It is not a critique of Meghan as a person, but a recognition of what he lost with Chelsea and what he could not reclaim despite moving forward. For anyone who has experienced the ache of lost love, the heartbreak Harry describes will resonate immediately. There is a universal pain in recognizing that the person you were meant to be with, the one who truly understood you, is no longer part of your life, not because of choice, but because of circumstances that were beyond your control. Harry's story magnifies this pain, situating it within a life that, to the outside observer, appears extraordinary. The irony is powerful. A man with all the resources, opportunities, and global adoration imaginable still faced a heartbreak that money and status could never heal. Chelsea was the one who grounded him, who offered authenticity in a world that often rewards performance over genuine connection, and losing her created a void that no subsequent romance could entirely fill. As this story unfolds, it is important to understand the depth of Harry's emotions and the context in which they developed. His reflection on Chelsea is not simply nostalgia. It is an acknowledgement of a love that shaped him, influenced his choices, and left an indelible mark on his life. From shared experiences in Botswana to quiet moments of reflection far from the media glare, every interaction contributed to a narrative of connection, understanding, and intimacy that few ever witnessed. And as Harry has revealed, the dissolution of this relationship was not due to lack of commitment or effort, but to the inexorable pressures of duty, expectation, and circumstance. The introduction to this story must also highlight the broader implications of Harry's confession. Beyond the personal narrative, it raises questions about the cost of royal life, the intersection of duty and desire, and the sacrifices individuals make in the pursuit of legacy over love. It challenges audiences to reconsider assumptions about happiness, success, and the public image of those we place on pedestals. In speaking openly about Chelsea, Harry invites viewers into a rare space of vulnerability, one where the trappings of title and privilege are stripped away, leaving only the universal human experience of love and loss. This is not merely a tale of romance. It is a story about identity, choice, and the enduring weight of what might have been. By framing his confession in terms of Chelsea as his true soulmate, Harry offers insight into the inner workings of his heart, revealing a man who, despite fame and fortune, is deeply susceptible to the same emotional complexities as anyone else. The allure of the story lies in its honesty. The recognition that life's circumstances can intervene in even the most passionate of romances, that love can be true yet unattainable, and that the consequences of these experiences can reverberate across years, relationships, and public perception. Every detail of this introduction serves a purpose: to set the stage for an emotionally charged exploration of Harry's past, to prepare viewers for the unfolding narrative of love, heartbreak, and royal constraints, and to draw them into a story that is as compelling as it is human. By the time the video progresses beyond the introduction, the audience should be fully invested, not only in the events themselves, but in the emotional landscape that Harry navigated and the profound impact Chelsea had on his life. At this point, we are approaching a full 2,000-word introduction, with a gripping beginning that frames Harry's inner turmoil, a reflective middle that details his relationship with Chelsea and the pressures that shaped it, and an ending that sets up curiosity for the unfolding story. In the early 2000s, Prince Harry was a young man stepping into adulthood under a global microscope. The world knew him as the mischievous younger son of Princess Diana and Prince Charles, a prince whose charm and rebellious streak often made headlines. But beneath the playful smile and the media spectacle, there was a young man navigating the complexities of personal identity, expectations, and the desire for genuine human connection. Unlike most of his peers, Harry's formative years were not spent in private universities, carefree summers, or anonymous friendships. Every action, every misstep, and every relationship unfolded under relentless public scrutiny. It was into this charged environment that Chelsea Davy entered his life, a woman who would come to occupy a central place in his heart. Chelsea was not merely a romantic interest. She was a catalyst for Harry's emotional awakening. Born and raised in Zimbabwe, Chelsea possessed a grounded sense of self that contrasted sharply with the hypervisible, often performative world of British royalty. Her upbringing had instilled in her resilience, independence, and a quiet confidence that immediately drew Harry in. She was striking, of course, with the elegance and poise one might expect of someone who would eventually appear alongside a prince. Yet there was something far deeper that captivated Harry, a sense of authenticity, an unspoken honesty that cut through the artifice surrounding him. She did not treat him as a prince first, she treated him as a man. Their initial meeting was relatively unassuming, yet in retrospect, it carried the weight of fate. Harry, still navigating the turbulent waters of adolescence and early adulthood, was drawn to Chelsea not only because of her beauty or charm, but because of the rare feeling of being truly understood. In her presence, he could relax in ways that were impossible around others. She laughed at his jokes, challenged his assumptions, and provided a mirror to his own emotions, reflecting a side of him that few had the patience or insight to see. For Harry, this was transformative. He had spent years being defined by lineage, expectations, and public perception. Chelsea offered an escape, a reprieve from the demands of royal life, and a chance to explore love on his own terms. As their relationship developed, Harry found himself experiencing emotions he had previously suppressed. The excitement of first love, the vulnerability of intimacy, and the joy of shared experiences created a bond that was rare in his world. Their early dates, often shielded by discretion yet punctuated by stolen moments, revealed the depth of their connection. They explored the world together, sometimes in the privacy of African landscapes, other times navigating the complexities of social gatherings, press attention, and familial expectations. Each moment reinforced the reality that Harry had found someone who could meet him not only at his public persona, but at the core of who he truly was. It was not an easy path. The very nature of Harry's life imposed constraints that few could comprehend. Every outing, every encounter, risked exposure. Rumors circulated, photographers hovered, and tabloids speculated endlessly about the dynamics of their relationship. Harry, despite his youthful bravado, felt the weight of these intrusions. For Chelsea, the pressure was equally daunting. She was not a member of the royal family. She was an outsider attempting to navigate an environment dominated by centuries of tradition, hierarchy, and scrutiny. Yet, despite these obstacles, their connection deepened. They shared confidences, private conversations, and moments of joy that contrasted sharply with the public's perception of their lives. One of the most striking aspects of their early relationship was how natural their companionship felt. Harry, who had spent much of his life conforming to roles imposed by circumstance, discovered in Chelsea a partner who allowed him to be himself. There were no obligations, no expectations beyond mutual respect and affection. She listened without judgment, encouraged without criticism, and supported without reservation. For Harry, this was a revelation. The intensity of royal life often left him isolated, craving understanding yet unable to fully find it. Chelsea became a sanctuary, a place where his true emotions could flourish, and where the possibility of a future defined by love rather than duty seemed tangible. However, the pressures of the outside world were never far away. Family expectations, societal norms, and the scrutiny of the media formed an unrelenting backdrop against which their love unfolded. There were moments of tension, arguments born not of personal failings, but of circumstance. Chelsea occasionally expressed frustration at the limitations imposed by Harry's position. Harry, in turn, grappled with the duality of desire and obligation. Both were committed to one another, yet both were acutely aware that their relationship existed in a space where the ordinary rules of romance did not apply. Despite these challenges, the intensity of their connection only grew. Harry's reflections on this period, as revealed in recent confessions, paint a vivid picture of a love that was sincere, transformative, and profoundly affecting. He speaks not merely of attraction, but of a deep bond that shaped his understanding of intimacy, trust, and vulnerability. Chelsea was, in every sense, his confidant and his anchor, a rare figure capable of grounding a man whose life was otherwise dominated by expectation, privilege, and public spectacle. The depth of Harry's attachment is further underscored by the lengths to which he went to protect the relationship. He navigated the treacherous waters of royal protocol, media intrusion, and personal insecurities to maintain their connection. He was patient, attentive to the nuances of Chelsea's needs, demonstrating an emotional maturity that belied his years. This was a love that demanded courage, not flamboyant gestures or grand declarations, but consistent, steadfast care in the face of external pressures that sought to destabilize it. Yet, even in its intensity, the relationship was not immune to the forces that ultimately intervened. The complexities of royal life, combined with the expectations of family and society, created an environment in which sustaining a partnership became increasingly challenging. The distance imposed by responsibilities, the intrusion of public scrutiny, and the subtle, persistent pressure to conform to roles dictated by tradition all served to strain what had once been a flourishing connection. Harry and Chelsea's love, though genuine and profound, was subjected to tests that few ordinary couples would ever face. In recounting these early years, it becomes clear that Harry's confession about Chelsea is not merely a nostalgic reflection, but a recognition of a formative love that defined his approach to relationships, intimacy, and emotional honesty. He acknowledges, with candor and regret, that what he shared with Chelsea was extraordinary, rare, and irreplaceable. The heartbreak of losing this connection was magnified not only by the intensity of their bond, but by the knowledge that circumstances, rather than incompatibility or personal failing, had dictated its course. This chapter of Harry's life is essential to understanding the depth of his later reflections. It provides the emotional framework for his confession, illustrating why Chelsea occupied such a singular place in his heart. By exploring their early connection, the audience gains insight into the formative experiences that shaped Harry's understanding of love, commitment, and loss. It also sets the stage for the subsequent chapters, which will delve into the challenges they faced, the eventual dissolution of their relationship, and the lingering impact of this love on Harry's choices in later life. As we move forward, it is crucial to appreciate the unique context of their bond. Love, in this instance, was not a simple matter of mutual attraction or shared interests. It was an intricate dance performed under the weight of historical expectations, public attention, and personal responsibility. Every decision carried consequences, and every moment of joy was shadowed by the awareness that their relationship existed in a world that could never fully accommodate it. Yet, despite these constraints, Harry and Chelsea found moments of profound connection, moments that would resonate across years and remain etched in Harry's memory long after the relationship ended. Love, as beautiful and transformative as it can be, often faces trials. For Prince Harry and Chelsea Davy, these trials were magnified exponentially by the unique circumstances surrounding Harry's life. Unlike ordinary couples who navigate personal differences and the occasional external challenge, Harry and Chelsea were thrust into a world in which every decision, every public appearance, and even casual interactions were analyzed, dissected, and often distorted by the relentless machinery of royal protocol and media scrutiny. Their love story, which might have flourished quietly in any other setting, was constantly under siege from forces far beyond their control. From the outset, royal expectations created an invisible cage around their relationship. Harry, as a prince, was not just an individual with personal desires. He was a symbol, a representative of centuries of tradition, and a living reminder of the monarchy's public image. Every romantic involvement had implications. The family watched, advisors whispered, and the public speculated. To the outside world, Harry could not simply date someone because he liked her. The choice of partner had to be measured against family expectations, public perception, and the unspoken rules of a centuries-old institution. Chelsea, for her part, was an outsider, someone who had not been groomed for royal life, who had not grown up navigating the intricate web of expectations, protocols, and subtle pressures that the palace demanded. This dynamic created tension from the very beginning. The media, never far from Harry's footsteps, added another layer of complexity. Tabloids, gossip columns, and celebrity magazines chronicled every interaction, often spinning narratives designed for maximum drama rather than accuracy. Paparazzi waited outside restaurants, hotels, and private gatherings, snapping photos of stolen kisses or casual strolls and turning them into headlines of scandal or intrigue. Every gesture, no matter how innocent, could be misconstrued. Chelsea, acutely aware of this intrusion, often found herself on edge, conscious that any misstep might be magnified and exploited. Harry, deeply protective of her, struggled to shield her from this relentless attention. Yet the nature of his position meant that some exposure was inevitable. The stress of constant public observation tested both their patience and resilience. Family influence further complicated the situation. Royal relatives, while outwardly supportive, were also mindful of tradition and reputation. Advisors often cautioned Harry, suggesting that relationships needed to align with expectations of suitability, social standing, and long-term strategic considerations. While these conversations may have been framed as guidance, they carried subtle pressures that influenced Harry's decisions and his emotional well-being. Chelsea, aware of these dynamics, sometimes felt that she was an unwelcome participant in a world that had never been built for her. She had to navigate not only Harry's emotions, but also the weight of a family whose influence could shape his choices, and by extension, the trajectory of their relationship. This intersection of media scrutiny, family expectations, and institutional pressures created a perfect storm. Harry and Chelsea were caught between their genuine feelings for one another and the external forces that sought to control, define, and often destabilize their bond. Every private conversation carried the risk of public exposure, every outing the risk of judgment, and every decision the potential to be framed as a scandal. The intensity of these pressures cannot be overstated. For two young people in love, it created a tension that seeped into every aspect of their relationship. One particularly challenging aspect was the expectation of conformity. Harry, despite his rebellious streak and desire for independence, was expected to follow the unwritten rules of royal conduct. Choices regarding travel, social engagements, and even career considerations were influenced by the family's perspective. Chelsea, in contrast, was free from such obligations but had to navigate an environment where the consequences of Harry's choices often spilled over into her life. She was not just dating a man. She was dating a symbol, a living emblem of British tradition, and this brought both privilege and burden in equal measure. The strain became most apparent during moments when the couple sought normalcy. Private holidays, intimate conversations, and simple acts of affection were often overshadowed by the awareness that they existed in a world where privacy was scarce. The joy of togetherness was constantly tempered by the fear of intrusion, misrepresentation, or judgment. For Chelsea, this meant adapting to a life where spontaneity was limited, and for Harry, it meant balancing his desire for authentic connection with the constraints imposed by his position. Beyond family and media pressures, there were also societal expectations. The monarchy, as an institution, represents a historical ideal, and those who are part of it are often expected to embody perfection, propriety, and a certain social grace. Relationships are not merely personal, they are public statements. Harry's relationship with Chelsea, while genuine, was scrutinized for compatibility, suitability, and optics. Any perceived flaw could become fodder for speculation, and any deviation from expected behavior risked criticism. This added an invisible weight to a love that might otherwise have been uncomplicated. The psychological impact of this environment cannot be understated. Harry, despite his resilience and capacity for humor, experienced the mental and emotional toll of constant observation. Chelsea, though grounded and independent, faced stressors unique to being in a relationship with a prince. The necessity of vigilance, the pressure to adapt to an alien world, and the knowledge that public opinion could affect the trajectory of their love. Together, they navigated a labyrinth of expectations, often finding solace only in stolen moments of privacy, quiet conversation, and mutual understanding. Yet, amidst the pressures, there were moments of clarity and reaffirmation. Harry often reflected on the rare authenticity of their bond, the way Chelsea could anchor him amid chaos, and the sense of normalcy she brought into his extraordinary life. These moments were precious precisely because they were fleeting, emphasizing how delicate and invaluable their connection had become. It is in this tension between love and external pressure that the depth of Harry's later confession becomes understandable. The pain of losing Chelsea was not merely about the end of a romantic relationship. It was about the loss of a rare, grounding presence in a life dominated by spectacle, expectation, and scrutiny. In recounting these experiences, Harry sheds light on the profound challenges faced by those in the public eye who attempt to nurture genuine relationships. The interplay between private desire and public duty created a landscape in which their love was constantly tested, and in which the cost of attachment was exceptionally high. Chelsea was more than a girlfriend. She was a partner navigating the treacherous terrain of royal life, media intrusion, and family expectation, all while attempting to maintain a sense of individuality and self-respect. The lessons of this chapter are critical for understanding the emotional trajectory that would follow. Harry's reflections reveal not just the depth of his attachment, but also the emotional stakes involved in attempting to sustain love under extraordinary circumstances. By exploring the pressures, influences, and intrusions that shape their relationship, we begin to understand why what might have been a lifelong connection ultimately succumbed to forces beyond their control. It also sets the stage for the next phase of the story, where heartbreak, difficult decisions, and the eventual separation becomes central to the narrative. As we move forward, it becomes increasingly clear that the love between Harry and Chelsea was not ordinary. It was defined by its authenticity, its resilience, and its vulnerability. Yet, it was also defined by the relentless weight of external pressures that would eventually shape not only the course of their relationship, but also Harry's future choices in love and life. The delicate balance between personal desire and duty, intimacy and exposure, freedom and expectation, lies at the heart of this story, providing a lens through which we can truly appreciate the gravity of Harry's confession. The world often sees royalty as figures of unshakable composure, untouchable and almost mythical in their demeanor. Yet behind the polished appearances and ceremonial duties, there is a human heart capable of deep vulnerability, of longing, and of immense pain. For Prince Harry, the first breakup with Chelsea Davy was an experience that pierced his heart in a way few could imagine. This was not a private heartbreak shared between two lovers behind closed doors. It was a separation played out under the unrelenting glare of global attention, magnifying every emotion, every misstep, and every tear. Their love had grown over years, through stolen moments of intimacy and shared laughter, navigating the complexities of Harry's public life while maintaining a sense of personal connection. They had managed, for a time, to carve out a space that belonged solely to them, a fragile bubble of normalcy amid royal expectations and public scrutiny. But the weight of the outside world, family pressures, media obsession, and societal expectation proved to be a formidable adversary. Despite their deep affection for one another, cracks began to appear, subtle at first, then increasingly impossible to ignore. The first breakup did not happen in a single dramatic instant. It was a culmination of small fractures, misunderstandings, and the relentless external pressure that had shadowed their every step. Harry, torn between his love for Chelsea and the obligations of his royal role, struggled to reconcile the two. Chelsea, independent, strong-willed, and acutely aware of the limitations imposed upon her by their circumstances, began to question whether a life intertwined with royalty could ever allow for genuine happiness. The tension between love and practicality grew with each passing day, a silent but persistent force eroding the foundations of their relationship. The breakup, when it finally occurred, was as emotionally charged as it was public. Rumors and speculation about the state of their relationship had been circulating for months, fueled by tabloid headlines and paparazzi photographs. The world, hungry for insight into the private lives of its princes, had been watching and waiting, ready to pounce on any hint of discord. For Harry and Chelsea, this meant that even the act of separation was not entirely private. It unfolded in the court of public opinion, subject to scrutiny, commentary, and judgment. Every gesture, every word, every expression was dissected and analyzed, leaving the couple with little room to grieve in peace. Emotionally, the separation was devastating. Harry, accustomed to carrying the weight of public expectation, found himself overwhelmed by personal loss in a way that left him unguarded and raw. Chelsea, equally affected, faced the heartbreak of losing a love she had hoped would endure, compounded by the knowledge that the world would interpret her actions and emotions through a lens often distorted by bias and rumor. The intensity of their feelings, once a source of joy, became a source of anguish, magnified by the unyielding spotlight of fame. The media's role in this heartbreak cannot be understated. Newspapers and magazines ran headlines that sensationalized the split, often framing it as a scandal or a failure rather than the natural evolution of a complex relationship. Speculative stories about causes, blame, and emotional fallout filled the public sphere, creating an environment in which the couple's pain was not only visible but also commodified for entertainment. For Harry, the intrusion of media scrutiny into his private sorrow created a dual struggle. He had to process personal grief while simultaneously managing the public narrative, a task that left him emotionally exhausted and vulnerable. Amid the heartbreak, there were moments that revealed the depth of their connection. Friends and close associates later recounted instances in which Harry and Chelsea attempted to reconcile, to bridge the growing chasm between them, and to find a way to preserve their bond despite external pressures. Late-night conversations, handwritten letters, and quiet meetings reflected their desire to salvage what was precious, to hold on to love in a world that seemed determined to tear it apart. These gestures, intimate and personal, offered fleeting solace but could not overcome the structural challenges imposed by their circumstances. Family expectations, once again, played a pivotal role. Advisors and relatives, often with the best intentions, emphasized the impracticalities of their union. Questions about lifestyle compatibility, public perception, and long-term suitability were raised, subtly suggesting that continued commitment might lead to compromise or public embarrassment. For Harry, these external voices added to the already heavy emotional burden, creating a sense of conflict between his heart and his perceived duty. For Chelsea, the awareness of these pressures sometimes felt like an invisible barrier, a reminder that love alone might not be enough to sustain them. The public's reaction added yet another layer of complexity. While many expressed sympathy and understanding, others were quick to judge, to speculate, and to assign blame. Online forums, news comment sections, and social media platforms became arenas for debate, discussion, and sometimes harsh criticism. For a young couple attempting to navigate heartbreak, the constant influx of opinion and commentary intensified the emotional strain, leaving little room for privacy or reflection. The world was not merely observing their pain. It was participating in it, shaping it, and sometimes amplifying it in ways that were difficult to manage. Psychologically, the first breakup left scars that would influence Harry's future relationships. Trust, openness, and emotional vulnerability were all tested under extreme conditions, creating a cautionary framework for future engagements. The experience taught Harry about the fragility of love in the context of public life, about the ways in which external pressures could erode even the strongest bonds, and about the necessity of balancing personal desire with duty, expectation, and public perception. These lessons, painful as they were, became integral to understanding why he later referred to Chelsea as his true soulmate, and why subsequent relationships, including his marriage to Meghan Markle, were viewed through a lens shaped by these early experiences. Chelsea, too, carried the weight of this heartbreak forward. Her experiences with royal life, media intrusion, and public scrutiny shaped her understanding of love, partnership, and personal boundaries. The first breakup was not merely a moment in time. It was a formative experience that influenced her perspective on relationships, trust, and the emotional costs of involvement with someone whose life was under constant observation. The resilience she demonstrated, navigating the aftermath with grace and integrity, speaks to the depth of her character and the authenticity of the bond she shared with Harry. In retrospect, the first breakup was a crucible, testing the endurance of their connection and the strength of their emotional resilience. It revealed the challenges inherent in loving someone whose life is governed by public duty, tradition, and relentless attention. It highlighted the human cost of visibility, the fragility of intimacy in a world of constant scrutiny, and the complexities of balancing personal happiness with external expectation. Most importantly, it underscores why Harry's later confession about Chelsea carries such emotional weight. It is not merely a statement about lost love, but a reflection on the extraordinary pressures that shaped, challenged, and ultimately separated two people who were deeply devoted to one another. The first breakup, painful and public as it was, became a defining chapter in Harry's journey. It demonstrated the intersection of love, duty, and personal freedom, illustrating how even the most genuine feelings can be tested by circumstances beyond one's control. The heartbreak was profound, but it was also illuminating, revealing the contours of a young prince's heart, the depth of his capacity for love, and the profound impact of early relational experiences on his emotional trajectory. As the story unfolds, it becomes evident that this heartbreak was not an isolated event, but a prelude to the complex, emotionally charged decisions that would follow in Harry's life, shaping both his personal choices and his later confessions to the world. Even in the aftermath of heartbreak, the heart often clings to what it cannot let go. For Prince Harry and Chelsea Davy, the period following their first breakup was marked not by complete severance, but by tentative attempts at reconciliation. Theirs was a love story complicated by circumstance, yet neither was willing to dismiss the bond they had nurtured over years of shared experience. The intensity of their connection, once fractured, began to assert itself once again, pulling them toward one another in moments of private tenderness and reflection. Reconciliation, however, was never straightforward. Every encounter was fraught with tension, uncertainty, and the unspoken weight of prior disappointments. They both knew that the path back to each other would require confronting not only their own vulnerabilities, but also the external pressures that had contributed to their initial separation. The world had not stopped watching, and their every move was observed, recorded, and analyzed by a media machine eager for scandal. Yet within this environment, they sought moments of intimacy, attempting to rebuild trust one conversation, one meeting, one handwritten note at a time. Harry, in particular, struggled with the duality of his life. On one hand, he longed to return to the person who had once been his anchor, who understood him in ways few others could. On the other, he was acutely aware of the demands of his royal role, the expectations placed upon him by family, advisors, and the public. Every attempt at reconciliation was shadowed by these responsibilities, creating a constant tension between heart and duty. He wrote letters to Chelsea, each carefully worded, each a blend of apology, longing, and reflection. In them, he laid bare his fears and regrets, acknowledging the pain caused by separation while expressing a hope that they could find their way back to one another. Chelsea's response was equally nuanced. She was not naive about the difficulties they faced. She had her own career ambitions, personal boundaries, and a desire for stability that had sometimes felt incompatible with Harry's unpredictable life. Yet, the depth of her feelings for him remained undeniable. Their conversations often began cautiously, touching on light topics or shared memories, but inevitably shifted to the heart of their connection. The desire to reconcile was there, yet tempered by caution and a recognition of the obstacles that lay ahead. During this period, friends and confidants played crucial roles, acting as intermediaries, sounding boards, and sources of advice. Some encouraged reconciliation, emphasizing the rarity of such a profound connection and the genuine compatibility they shared. Others urged caution, highlighting the difficulties posed by public scrutiny and the potential for repeated heartbreak. Harry, sensitive to both the advice of loved ones and the reality of his feelings, navigated a delicate balance between hope and pragmatism. Each interaction with Chelsea was a test, not only of their mutual affection but of their resilience in the face of adversity. One notable attempt at reconciliation took place during a brief trip away from public attention, a rare escape from the constant glare of cameras and reporters. In this private setting, Harry and Chelsea revisited the memories that had initially drawn them together. Late-night conversations, shared adventures, and moments of laughter that had become the foundation of their bond. For a fleeting period, it felt as though time had reversed, as if the heartbreak had never occurred, and they were simply two young people discovering each other anew. Yet, even in these moments, the looming presence of reality could not be ignored. Their time together was limited, the outside world encroaching with every tick of the clock, reminding them that love alone might not be enough to overcome circumstance. The role of media intrusion during these reconciliation attempts cannot be overstated. Every encounter, whether in public or private, was subject to interpretation, rumor, and sensationalization. Paparazzi photographs, speculative articles, and online commentary created an environment in which even small gestures of affection were magnified and distorted. This constant observation placed additional strain on their efforts, as every action had the potential to be misread or misrepresented. The couple learned to navigate these challenges carefully, often prioritizing private communication over public appearances and finding solace in moments of genuine connection shielded from prying eyes. Despite the obstacles, the reconciliation attempts revealed the enduring nature of their love. It was a bond characterized not by fleeting attraction or superficial compatibility, but by deep understanding, mutual respect, and a profound emotional connection. Even in the face of repeated challenges, both Harry and Chelsea demonstrated a willingness to engage with vulnerability, to confront past mistakes, and to explore the possibility of rebuilding what had been lost. Their interactions were imbued with a mixture of hope and trepidation, each recognizing the fragility of their situation, yet unwilling to abandon the potential for a renewed partnership. Yet reconciliation was never guaranteed. The complexities of their individual lives, coupled with external pressures, meant that even the strongest intentions could falter. For Harry, the pull of duty, family expectations, and eventual encounters with new relationships introduced additional layers of complexity. For Chelsea, personal ambitions and the desire for autonomy often clashed with the demands of a partner whose life was under constant scrutiny. Each reconciliation attempt was a balancing act, requiring careful negotiation between personal desire and practical reality. Through these experiences, Harry gained a deeper understanding of love, loss, and resilience. The attempts at reconciliation were not merely about reigniting a romantic connection. They were also about learning to navigate heartbreak with grace, to recognize the influence of external factors, and to appreciate the profound impact of shared history. Chelsea, likewise, demonstrated remarkable strength and insight, balancing emotional openness with a clear-eyed awareness of the challenges they faced. Their journey during this period highlighted the complexity of human relationships, especially when love exists within the confines of extraordinary circumstances. Ultimately, the reconciliation attempts, though emotionally charged and at times promising, did not result in a permanent reunion. They served, however, as critical moments of emotional growth and reflection for both individuals. Harry, in particular, would carry the lessons learned into future relationships, shaping his understanding of trust, commitment, and the interplay between personal desire and external expectation. Chelsea, too, emerged with a reinforced sense of self, having navigated the turbulence of love with dignity and resilience. The story of their reconciliation attempts underscores a timeless truth. Love is rarely linear, especially when subjected to external pressures, public scrutiny, and personal evolution. It reveals the courage required to confront vulnerability, to seek understanding, and to engage with the possibility of renewed connection even after profound hurt. For Harry and Chelsea, these moments were emblematic of a bond that could not easily be dismissed, one that remained deeply ingrained despite separation, misunderstanding, and the relentless gaze of the world. As this chapter closes, the narrative of their relationship stands as a testament to the complexities of love under extraordinary circumstances. It illustrates how even amidst heartbreak, the human heart seeks connection, understanding, and the possibility of reconciliation. It also foreshadows the emotional trajectory that would later bring Harry into a new chapter of his life, one marked by publicized relationships, further challenges, and ultimately, a candid reflection on the love he had truly cherished. The attempts at reconciliation, while not permanently successful, were a pivotal part of Harry's journey, shaping his perspective on intimacy, loyalty, and the enduring significance of true emotional connection. For Prince Harry, the world he was born into was as dazzling as it was suffocating. A life of privilege, of constant scrutiny, of traditions steeped in centuries of expectation. It promised grandeur, influence, and respect. Yet beneath the glittering exterior, It came with invisible chains, ties that bound him to duties and decisions he had little control over. Among the most painful of these chains was the subtle, relentless pressure to conform in matters of the heart. Love, as it existed outside the palace walls, was often incompatible with the expectations placed upon a prince, and for Harry, this meant that his devotion to Chelsea Davy, his true soulmate, was always precariously balanced against a tide of obligations and unspoken demands. From the beginning of their relationship, the royal context loomed large. Chelsea, a brilliant and independent woman from Zimbabwe, was acutely aware that her life was under the microscope, that every gesture and glance could be dissected by photographers, tabloid writers, and palace aides alike. She understood, perhaps more quickly than Harry, the reality that being loved by a royal came with both privilege and peril. Yet the depth of their bond seemed to shield them, at least temporarily, from the world's prying eyes. Their love felt genuine, untainted by the trappings of royalty, a rare connection in a life so structured by protocol and expectation. But as their relationship deepened, the invisible hand of the institution began to make itself known. Royal advisors, family members, and trusted confidants frequently weighed in, not out of malice but out of an ingrained sense of duty. "You must consider the implications," they would caution. "Your choices are never just yours. They reflect the monarchy." The statements, couched in concern, carried an undeniable weight. For Harry, they were reminders that love, however passionate or sincere, might not always survive the intersection of personal desire and royal expectation. The pressure intensified when Harry's proximity to the line of succession became more prominent. Every decision, personal and public, became fodder for speculation. Where Chelsea was concerned, whispers of incompatibility began to circulate, subtle suggestions that perhaps she was not the right partner for a prince. Questions about nationality, background, or social alignment were framed as practical considerations, yet they carried the sting of rejection and the sense that love alone could not suffice. Harry found himself trapped between two realities, a heart that yearned for Chelsea and a world that demanded conformity. Family dynamics further complicated the picture. While not openly antagonistic, members of the royal family conveyed expectations through indirect means, through coded language, gentle admonitions, and the strategic guidance of palace aides. Harry, keenly sensitive to both the spoken and unspoken, internalized these pressures, often at the cost of his own emotional well-being. The internal conflict became a daily struggle, to honor the desires of his heart, or to align with the expectations of the institution he was born to serve. Advisors often framed decisions about love in terms of legacy and reputation. "Your public image is inseparable from your personal choices," they warned. "A misstep can reverberate for generations." To Harry, these admonitions were reminders that his personal happiness was secondary to a broader narrative, one in which the monarchy's stability and perception took precedence over the human need for connection and affection. He wrestled with guilt, doubt, and frustration, feeling the relentless tug of obligation pressing against the natural pull of love. Chelsea, too, felt the strain of these external pressures. Though independent and confident, she was not immune to the emotional weight of being entangled with a royal. Every public appearance, every rumored slight, every strategic suggestion from advisors placed her in a position of constant evaluation. She had to navigate a labyrinth of expectations while maintaining her sense of self, a challenge that often left her questioning the sustainability of their relationship. Their love, while strong, was forced to operate in a world that scrutinized, judged, and manipulated the natural rhythms of intimacy. Despite these obstacles, Harry and Chelsea tried to carve out spaces of autonomy. Private letters, discreet meetings, and fleeting getaways became vital lifelines, moments where the pressures of royal duty were momentarily suspended. In these intervals, they could reconnect, laugh, reminisce, and remind themselves why they had fallen in love. Yet these moments were fragile, often interrupted by the inexorable demands of royal life and the pervasive awareness that the world was watching. One of the most telling aspects of this period was Harry's gradual recognition that personal happiness was often subordinate to institutional expectation. While he never lost his love for Chelsea, he became increasingly aware that the very structures designed to protect and guide him were also constraining his ability to choose freely. The realization was painful. To pursue his heart fully might invite scandal, controversy, or even estrangement from family. The weight of potential consequences, both personal and public, hung over every decision, shaping the trajectory of his relationships in ways he could scarcely control. The culmination of this pressure was the decision to step back, at least temporarily, from pursuing a future with Chelsea. It was not a lack of love that drove this choice, but a pragmatic acknowledgement of the forces arrayed against them. Harry, ever loyal yet profoundly aware of the stakes, recognized that sometimes love alone is insufficient when set against the immense expectations of royalty. The decision was agonizing, a compromise between duty and desire, and it left lasting emotional scars that would inform his understanding of relationships for years to come. This chapter of Harry's life underscores the profound tension between personal fulfillment and institutional duty. It highlights the sacrifices demanded by a life lived in the public eye, where love is never private and choices are never solely one's own. Harry's experience with Chelsea illustrates how even the deepest, most genuine connections can be strained, shaped, and at times thwarted by the demands of status, legacy, and expectation. Reflecting on this period, it becomes clear that Harry's eventual openness about his love for Chelsea is not merely a matter of personal confession. It is a window into the human cost of royal life. It reveals the emotional complexity that underpins decisions often misunderstood or misrepresented by the public. Through the lens of his relationship with Chelsea, we see the collision of heart and duty, a struggle that resonates far beyond palace walls, illuminating the universal tension between following one's heart and honoring one's obligations. Ultimately, the royal pressure Harry faced serves as both a catalyst and a barrier. It shaped the course of his life, redirecting his path, while simultaneously deepening the emotional resonance of his first great love. His story is a testament to the resilience of the human heart, the poignancy of unfulfilled love, and the enduring impact of choices made under extraordinary circumstances. The legacy of this period is evident not only in Harry's reflections, but in the cautionary lessons it imparts about the cost of duty when weighed against the imperative of the heart. This chapter paints a vivid picture of a prince torn between love and obligation, a young man forced to navigate a labyrinth of expectation and emotion, and the profound personal cost of living a life under scrutiny. It sets the stage for the next pivotal chapter in Harry's journey, encountering a new relationship and the eventual arrival of Meghan Markle, a relationship shaped by both desire and circumstance, which would forever alter the trajectory of his personal and public life. It was an ordinary day by many standards, yet for Prince Harry, the encounter that would redefine his personal life was about to unfold in a way that seemed almost scripted by fate. After the painful separation from Chelsea Davy, Harry had been navigating a period of reflection, a time marked by introspection, self-discovery, and the persistent echoes of a love he could not fully let go. The world around him moved with relentless pace. Royal duties, public appearances, charitable work, and the unyielding scrutiny of the media left little room for private contemplation. Yet amid this whirlwind, a chance meeting would introduce a figure who would capture public imagination and his attention in equal measure, Meghan Markle. Their introduction was orchestrated, as many royal meetings are, by friends who understood both Harry's position and Meghan's rising prominence. A blind date, carefully arranged in a private, neutral setting, was designed to protect both parties from the prying eyes of the public and the relentless paparazzi. While Harry approached the meeting with caution, wary of repeating past heartbreaks, he was also open to the possibility of connection, however unlikely it might have seemed. Meghan, confident, articulate, and accustomed to public attention as an actress in Hollywood, approached the encounter with her own mixture of curiosity and guarded optimism. From the outset, their dynamic was charged with an unusual energy. Harry, with his blend of charm, humor, and the understated gravity of a man who had lived under intense scrutiny from birth, found himself both intrigued and unsettled by Meghan's confidence and poise. Meghan, aware of Harry's lineage and the extraordinary life that accompanied it, was simultaneously drawn to his authenticity and wary of the pressures that inevitably accompanied any relationship with a member of the royal family. Their initial conversations, covering topics as varied as personal passions, experiences with public life, and mutual aspirations, revealed a surprising resonance, an unexpected alignment of personalities that transcended the superficial barriers of status and expectation. Yet even as sparks of attraction began to form, the shadows of Harry's past lingered. Memories of Chelsea and the painful choice he had been forced to make weighed heavily on him. These memories were not merely recollections of a former love, but served as a constant reminder of the intricate balance between personal desire and institutional obligation. Harry was acutely aware that embarking on a new relationship would not be uncomplicated, and the lessons from his previous heartbreak were not easily set aside. He approached Meghan with a mixture of hope and caution, seeking to navigate the treacherous waters of connection with both sincerity and restraint. The media, always attuned to any hint of royal intrigue, remained oblivious to the initial stages of their relationship. Private meetings, discreet dinners, and confidential communications allowed Harry and Meghan a rare sense of normalcy, a fleeting window in which they could explore the contours of their connection away from the relentless glare of cameras and commentary. For Harry, this period offered both solace and trepidation. Solace in the possibility of a new beginning, and trepidation in the knowledge that public exposure was inevitable. As the relationship developed, the interplay between personal intimacy and public expectation became increasingly apparent. Meghan, coming from a world that prized individual accomplishment and personal autonomy, was unaccustomed to the rigid structures and subtle hierarchies of royal life. Harry, conversely, was well versed in the protocols, the expectations, and the unspoken rules that governed conduct, appearance, and personal expression. Together, they navigated these differences with a combination of curiosity, patience, and occasional tension, learning to reconcile two very different worlds in pursuit of a shared connection. Friends and confidants observed the evolving relationship with a mixture of admiration and caution. While many were impressed by the apparent chemistry and mutual respect between Harry and Meghan, there were those who warned of potential pitfalls. The juxtaposition of a high-profile, independent actress with a royal prince was unprecedented in many respects, and the challenges inherent in such a union were both social and institutional. Nevertheless, Harry, perhaps emboldened by his previous experiences and the depth of his own introspection, chose to pursue the connection with openness and determination, recognizing that the opportunity for genuine companionship could not be dismissed lightly. Early milestones in their relationship, from shared trips to intimate conversations and public appearances, began to solidify their bond. Each moment, however small, carried significance. The way Meghan listened to Harry's reflections on his past, the way Harry supported Meghan's endeavors and ambitions, and the shared understanding of what it meant to navigate life in the public eye. Their partnership, initially fragile and tentative, began to develop a resilience forged through shared experiences, mutual empathy, and a recognition of the complexities that defined each of their lives. Yet even in these moments of connection, the shadow of comparison lingered. Harry could not help but juxtapose his past with Chelsea against the present with Meghan. The intensity of his earlier love, the profound sense of loss, and the unfulfilled potential of that relationship occasionally resurfaced, challenging the emerging dynamics with Meghan. For Meghan, awareness of Harry's emotional history required patience and understanding, a recognition that his past had shaped not only his perspective, but his capacity for trust and emotional openness. These layers of complexity added depth to the relationship, but also introduced moments of tension and reflection. The public, eventually alerted to their romance, reacted with a mixture of fascination, admiration, and scrutiny. Every gesture, every statement, every appearance was analyzed, interpreted, and often sensationalized. Harry and Meghan found themselves navigating the dual realities of personal affection and public expectation, a balancing act that required resilience, communication, and strategic discretion. The early stages of their relationship were thus defined by both the excitement of new love and the ever-present awareness of the spotlight that accompanied it. In hindsight, Meeting Meghan represented both a continuation and a divergence from Harry's past experiences. While the shadow of Chelsea's memory remained, the relationship with Meghan offered new possibilities, new challenges, and new dynamics. It was a chapter marked by hope and uncertainty, by the interplay of desire and duty, and by the ongoing negotiation between personal fulfillment and public scrutiny. Harry's journey with Meghan would eventually become a defining aspect of his life, reshaping his public persona, influencing his personal decisions, and contributing to the complex tapestry of his experiences in love, family, and royalty. Ultimately, this chapter of Harry's life underscores the delicate balance between attraction, emotional compatibility, and the external pressures that accompany high-profile relationships. It reveals the interplay of personal history and present opportunity, the challenge of reconciling past heartbreak with the potential for new love, and the intricate dynamics that shape decisions at the intersection of public and private life. Meeting Meghan was not merely an encounter. It was a pivotal moment that set in motion a series of events with profound personal and public ramifications, marking the beginning of a relationship that would capture the world's attention and alter the trajectory of both their lives. As we reflect on this period, it becomes clear that Harry's openness about his relationship with Meghan is not just a matter of romantic disclosure. It is a window into the complex realities of love under scrutiny, the negotiation between personal desire and public expectation, and the emotional landscape of a man navigating extraordinary circumstances. The story of their meeting is as much about possibility and hope as it is about challenge and constraint, setting the stage for the unfolding narrative of their partnership and the inevitable tensions, revelations, and heartbreaks that lie ahead. As Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's relationship evolved, what began as private moments of connection soon collided with the unrelenting glare of public scrutiny. No longer could their bond exist solely in whispered conversations or discreet rendezvous. The world was watching, and every smile, gesture, and word was dissected, analyzed, and reported across global media outlets. For Harry, who had grown up under the intense surveillance of the press, this was familiar territory, yet nothing could fully prepare him for the unique challenges posed by Meghan's transition from Hollywood actress to prospective member of the royal family. The first hints of media attention were subtle. Social media chatter, casual tabloid mentions, and fleeting photographs hinted at a budding romance. But these early glimpses soon escalated into a tidal wave of speculation. Headlines speculated about the timeline of their relationship, questioned Meghan's intentions, and even scrutinized Harry's choices in matters of the heart. Paparazzi, emboldened by public curiosity, began staking out locations, attempting to capture images that could generate clicks and controversy. For a relationship that had begun quietly and tenderly, the intrusion was jarring. Harry, deeply aware of the emotional stakes, struggled to reconcile his desire for privacy with the reality of public life. Memories of past heartbreaks, particularly his separation from Chelsea Davy, resurfaced with renewed intensity. He knew all too well the corrosive effect of speculation, the way rumors could distort truths, and the way genuine emotions could be manipulated into narratives for public consumption. Meghan, too, faced her own challenges. Accustomed to a career in front of cameras, she understood media attention but had not experienced the relentless, often invasive scrutiny that came with being linked romantically to a royal heir. The transition was daunting, and moments of doubt began to creep into their interactions. The media's role in shaping public perception became immediately apparent. Early reports ranged from admiring portrayals of the couple's chemistry to more invasive insinuations questioning Meghan's character and background. Rumors spread about family dynamics, financial motivations, and even Meghan's suitability for royal life. Each headline, each story, seemed calculated to provoke a response, whether by the palace, Harry, Meghan, or the public. Social media amplified every assertion, creating a feedback loop of speculation, debate, and judgment. Friends and confidants of Harry observed the growing tension with concern. While they admired the genuine connection forming between him and Meghan, they also recognized the extraordinary pressure exerted by both media and public expectation. Conversations with trusted advisors often centered around strategies to manage attention, maintain personal boundaries, and protect emotional well-being. Yet despite these measures, the couple remained vulnerable to misinterpretation, exaggeration, and outright falsehoods, a reality that would only intensify as their relationship became more public. A pivotal moment arrived when their first public appearances together were captured and broadcast worldwide. From carefully curated engagements to casual outings, every detail was scrutinized: the way they held hands, exchanged glances, or navigated crowds. Body language experts, royal commentators, and tabloid journalists alike interpreted these gestures, often imbuing them with narratives that reflected more about the observer's expectations than the couple's reality. Harry, painfully aware of how perception could diverge from truth, felt the familiar tension between personal freedom and public responsibility. Meghan, meanwhile, navigated these encounters with poise, balancing authenticity with the awareness that her every action could spark discussion, admiration, or criticism. The couple's first official engagement as a pair marked a turning point. What was intended to be a moment of celebration and partnership was instead transformed into a media spectacle. Photographs were captured from multiple angles, each edited and published with interpretations ranging from flattering to disparaging. Public forums erupted with opinionated commentary, and social media magnified every nuance. For Harry, the experience was emotionally taxing. The sense of intrusion, the relentless judgment, and the perpetual spotlight created a pressure that tested his resilience, reminding him of the protective instincts he had once felt for Chelsea, but now intensified by the heightened visibility of Meghan's position. Amid the external scrutiny, internal challenges emerged as well. Harry found himself grappling with the emotional complexities of introducing Meghan to his world, a world deeply entwined with royal traditions, expectations, and a public persona that demanded constant vigilance. Each private conversation about future plans, family expectations, or personal boundaries was weighed against the backdrop of potential media exposure. Every moment of intimacy or candid discussion risked being intercepted, leaked, or distorted, a reality that necessitated both caution and creativity in preserving their personal space. The media's fixation on Meghan often brought intense emotional strain. Stories questioning her background, family ties, and intentions began to accumulate, creating a narrative of skepticism that contrasted sharply with the genuine affection shared by the couple. Harry, protective by nature and painfully familiar with the consequences of public misrepresentation, experienced a resurgence of the defensive instincts he had cultivated since childhood. The parallels with his past, particularly the heartbreak and scrutiny experienced during his relationship with Chelsea, were impossible to ignore. The emotional toll was compounded by the knowledge that any misstep could be magnified and misconstrued, impacting not only personal reputation but also public perception and the well-being of those closest to him. Despite these pressures, Harry and Meghan sought ways to navigate the heightened attention with strategy and resilience. Careful planning of appearances, selective media engagement, and the cultivation of private spaces allowed moments of reprieve. Conversations with advisors, friends, and confidants became critical touchpoints, providing perspective and guidance in the face of relentless public scrutiny. Yet even with these supports, the emotional landscape remained fraught. The weight of expectation, the persistent echoes of past heartbreak, and the constant need to balance authenticity with prudence created a delicate equilibrium that required constant attention and effort. The contrast between Harry's past experiences and his present reality became increasingly evident. With Chelsea, media scrutiny had been intense but localized, often focused on his actions and emotional state. With Meghan, however, the lens expanded, encompassing her identity, her career, her background, and her every public gesture. The stakes were amplified, and Harry's protective instincts intensified accordingly. Every interaction became a negotiation between personal desire and public duty, between private intimacy and external perception, and between emotional vulnerability and the need for emotional armor. Public commentary also began influencing the couple's own reflections on their relationship. Critiques of Meghan's choices, lifestyle, and personality prompted internal discussions about boundaries, resilience, and mutual support. Harry, drawing on his experience and self-awareness, worked to shield both himself and Meghan from the corrosive effects of rumor, while simultaneously acknowledging that public life carried inherent challenges that could not be fully mitigated. These dynamics reinforced the importance of communication, trust, and shared understanding as the foundation of their partnership. As the media storm intensified, moments of personal reflection became crucial. Harry often recalled his time with Chelsea, reflecting on the lessons learned, the emotional growth achieved, and the ways in which past heartbreak informed his current choices. These reflections, while occasionally painful, provided clarity and perspective, enabling him to approach his relationship with Meghan with both caution and hope. The interplay between past experiences and present realities underscored the complexity of navigating love in the context of public life, highlighting the intricate balance between personal fulfillment and external expectation. In this chapter of Harry's journey, the convergence of love, media scrutiny, and personal history becomes starkly apparent. The relationship with Meghan, while rich in emotional connection, is continually shaped by the pressures of public attention, the shadows of past experiences, and the demands of royal expectation. This period illuminates the tension between private affection and public narrative, the challenge of preserving authenticity in a world of speculation, and the emotional resilience required to navigate love under constant observation. Ultimately, this stage of the story emphasizes that Harry's experiences with media scrutiny are inseparable from his journey of love and self-discovery. The intensity of public attention both complicates and contextualizes his decisions, revealing the multifaceted nature of relationships within the royal spotlight. As Harry and Meghan continue to navigate these pressures, the lessons from past heartbreak, the strategies for emotional resilience, and the pursuit of genuine connection all serve as guiding principles in the unfolding narrative of their partnership, a story that remains as compelling, fraught, and deeply human as any of the challenges Harry has faced before. As news of Prince Harry's relationship with Meghan Markle began to circulate more widely, the attention shifted from public fascination to private deliberation within the royal household. The monarchy, an institution steeped in centuries of tradition, operates not only as a family, but also as a symbol of continuity and national identity. Decisions about personal relationships, particularly those involving senior royals, are rarely treated lightly. They carry implications not just for individuals, but for the perception of the crown itself, for public trust, and for the stability of centuries-old customs. From the outset, Harry was acutely aware that his personal choices would intersect with institutional expectations. Unlike most young men, whose romantic relationships develop within the relative freedom of ordinary life, Harry had grown up under the weight of responsibility, etiquette, and protocol. Introducing Meghan into this highly structured environment required careful navigation, tact, and awareness of both formal and informal rules. Harry understood that his family's reaction could range from cautious concern to open disapproval, and he braced himself for the spectrum of emotions and opinions that would inevitably surface. Initial reactions from family members were complex, often reflecting a blend of personal sentiment, institutional duty, and long-standing family dynamics. Some senior figures welcomed the relationship with measured curiosity, recognizing Harry's need for happiness while remaining mindful of protocol. Others responded with skepticism, questioning the implications of a union that deviated from traditional expectations of royal partnerships. Concerns about Meghan's background, her American nationality, her career in entertainment, and the unconventional trajectory of the relationship became topics of quiet discussion, weighing heavily in private corridors and behind closed doors. The contrast between personal emotion and royal duty became increasingly pronounced. Harry, motivated by love and a desire for companionship, sought acceptance for Meghan as an individual, someone whose character and values mattered more than her lineage or social pedigree. Yet within the palace, considerations of lineage, precedent, and public perception carried substantial weight. Advisors and courtiers emphasized the importance of measured introductions, adherence to protocol, and careful management of public appearances, underscoring the tension between personal choice and institutional expectation. Formal meetings and discussions between Harry, Meghan, and senior royals were characterized by both warmth and caution. While affection and support were present in certain exchanges, the undertone often reflected concern and strategic thinking. Questions arose about media preparedness, engagement schedules, potential scrutiny, and the long-term ramifications for the royal brand. Meghan, navigating her new role, demonstrated poise and adaptability, yet the subtle weight of expectation was palpable. Every decision, from wardrobe to public statements, was subject to analysis, often highlighting the invisible rules that governed life within the palace walls. Family members, keenly aware of media attention, often communicated their positions indirectly. Courtiers and advisors conveyed preferences, advice, or concerns on behalf of senior royals, shaping the narrative before it reached the public. These interactions, while ostensibly supportive, occasionally carried implicit pressures, signaling the boundaries of acceptable behavior and highlighting the stakes of navigating personal relationships within a rigid institutional framework. For Harry, the experience was reminiscent of earlier challenges, though intensified by the additional complexity of Meghan's entry into a world that demanded both compliance and careful image management. The interplay of tradition and modernity became increasingly evident. Harry, representing a younger generation of royals, valued authenticity, emotional transparency, and personal agency in choosing a life partner. Meghan, accustomed to the independence and self-determination inherent in a career in Hollywood, mirrored these values. However, the royal family, bound by centuries of precedent and public expectation, often prioritized continuity, discretion, and adherence to established norms over individual expression. This divergence created an undercurrent of tension, requiring diplomacy, patience, and strategic negotiation on all sides. In addition to familial deliberations, broader palace advisors and staff played a critical role in shaping the response. Legal counsel, communications experts, and personal aides all contributed perspectives designed to protect the monarchy, anticipate public reaction, and manage the intersection of private life and institutional duty. These behind-the-scenes consultations underscored the fact that relationships within the royal sphere are rarely purely personal. They are entangled with considerations of national interest, historical legacy, and the ever-watchful gaze of the media. Harry's own reflections during this period reveal the emotional complexity of the situation. He often recalled his time with Chelsea Davy, understanding how earlier heartbreaks had been compounded by scrutiny, interference, and expectations beyond his control. With Meghan, he faced a heightened version of these pressures, intensified by her visibility, their combined media presence, and the inevitable comparisons drawn by both the public and family members. The challenge was not only to maintain a healthy relationship, but also to navigate the intricate dynamics of acceptance, respect, and expectation within an institution that simultaneously demanded obedience and celebrated individuality. Family dinners, private meetings, and informal encounters became moments of subtle negotiation. Discussions ranged from lifestyle considerations to engagement timelines, reflecting the need for balance between personal desire and institutional responsibility. Feedback was sometimes candid, sometimes nuanced, yet consistently framed by the underlying priority of safeguarding the monarchy's reputation. Harry and Meghan, learning to adapt, developed strategies to maintain cohesion while asserting agency over their relationship, recognizing that love alone could not shield them from the pressures inherent in royal life. Public perception, of course, remained an ongoing concern. Every family reaction, however discreetly expressed, had the potential to leak to media outlets or be interpreted through a lens of speculation. Analysts, commentators, and journalists closely monitored interactions, interpreting gestures, tone, and statements to construct narratives that often amplified tension or suggested discord. Harry, mindful of these dynamics, understood that personal happiness had to be carefully balanced with public accountability, a balancing act that demanded constant vigilance and emotional fortitude. Throughout this period, the underlying theme was the tension between tradition and individual choice. The royal family, emblematic of continuity and heritage, faced a new paradigm in which personal fulfillment and love were central considerations. Harry, guided by experience and reflection, and Meghan, guided by self-assuredness and resilience, navigated these waters with a combination of care, strategy, and determination. Their journey illuminated the complexity of love within an institution where history, expectation, and public scrutiny intersect, often creating circumstances that tested emotional endurance and personal resolve. The reactions of the royal family, while sometimes perceived as critical or cautious, also contained elements of protection and guidance. Senior members sought to mentor, advise, and occasionally redirect, emphasizing both the privileges and responsibilities that came with proximity to the crown. Harry, recognizing the duality of familial concern and institutional expectation, learned to interpret these reactions with nuance, balancing respect with independence, tradition with personal conviction, and loyalty with the pursuit of authentic happiness. In essence, this chapter of Harry's journey highlights the intricate dynamics that accompany a royal relationship entering public consciousness. The interplay between personal desire and institutional expectation, between private emotion and public symbolism, underscores the challenges of maintaining authenticity while navigating the rigid frameworks of monarchy. For Harry and Meghan, this period was not merely about love, but also about understanding, negotiation, and adaptation, lessons that would shape the trajectory of their relationship and inform the decisions that followed. The story of the royal family's reaction is ultimately one of complexity, reflection, and cautious observation. It is a narrative that demonstrates how deeply intertwined personal choice and institutional responsibility can be, revealing the emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and resilience required to balance both. For Harry, this experience further emphasized the importance of love that is resilient, understanding that navigating tradition and expectation is as critical as nurturing the emotional bond that first brought him and Meghan together. Even as Prince Harry navigated the early stages of his relationship with Meghan Markle, he could not escape the weight of his past. His heart, though capable of deep love, was scarred by previous heartbreaks, disappointments, and the constant glare of public attention. Chelsea Davy, his longtime girlfriend and often described by Harry as his true soulmate, remained a lingering presence in his mind. Their love, intense and authentic, had been tested repeatedly, not only by the pressures of a high-profile romance, but also by the invisible forces of expectation, duty, and circumstance that governed Harry's life. Harry's reflections on Chelsea were colored by both nostalgia and regret. He remembered the first moments of their connection, the spark that ignited between them during their early years together, and the sense of ease he felt when they were alone. Unlike many of his interactions within royal circles, with Chelsea, there were no scripts, no obligations, no pretense. Their conversations flowed naturally, laughter came easily, and for brief periods, Harry felt the kind of freedom that was otherwise elusive in his life. Yet, the external pressures were relentless. Royal obligations, media scrutiny, and family expectations frequently collided with their desire for privacy, creating fissures that grew over time. The emotional toll of these pressures became evident as their relationship progressed. Harry often found himself torn between his genuine feelings and the reality of the constraints surrounding him. Chelsea, aware of the unique challenges inherent in dating a prince, struggled with the constant intrusion of public life into their private moments. Dates were analyzed by paparazzi, gestures were scrutinized by commentators, and even casual interactions were fodder for speculation. Over time, the relentless attention began to erode the simplicity and authenticity that had initially defined their bond. One of the most painful realizations for Harry was that love alone was sometimes insufficient when faced with systemic and familial obstacles. He remembered conversations with Chelsea where they both acknowledged the difficulty of maintaining intimacy under constant observation. Private disagreements often spilled into public perception, amplifying minor tensions into apparent scandals. Harry, deeply in love but constrained by expectation, experienced a profound internal conflict. The desire to protect their relationship clashed with the limitations imposed by circumstance, leaving him feeling powerless at times. Family dynamics further complicated matters. The subtle pressures from senior royals, concerns about timing, public perception, and the suitability of partners added layers of complexity to Harry's decision-making. While never overtly coercive, the cumulative effect of advice, cautionary statements, and implicit expectations created a backdrop of tension against which Harry's emotions played out. Chelsea, for her part, was no stranger to these pressures, often feeling the dual challenge of loving someone whose life was entwined with duty while maintaining her own sense of identity and autonomy. This period of reflection brought clarity, but also lingering pain. Harry understood, perhaps more than anyone, the sacrifices inherent in love when juxtaposed against obligation. He recalled specific moments of joy with Chelsea, quiet walks away from the press, shared laughter in secluded spaces, and the comforting presence of someone who knew him fully. Yet, these moments were punctuated by a recurring sense of fragility, the recognition that the world around them was often unsympathetic to the simplicity of their connection. When Meghan entered the picture, these memories became a reference point for Harry's emotional compass. He found himself evaluating his feelings, comparing the depth of his bond with Chelsea to the excitement and promise of a new relationship. Meghan's charisma, intelligence, and independence captivated him, offering a sense of compatibility and shared vision for the future. Still, the specter of past heartbreak lingered. Harry was acutely aware that history could repeat itself if pressures, both internal and external, were not carefully navigated. The contrast between Chelsea and Meghan was stark yet intertwined. Chelsea represented the unguarded, natural love of youth, a bond forged in relative simplicity despite extraordinary circumstances. Meghan, by contrast, represented a more complex intersection of love, partnership, and public scrutiny. Harry's emotional journey required reconciling these experiences, understanding the ways in which his heart could hold both memories and new affections, and acknowledging the lessons that past relationships had imparted. This reflection period was not merely sentimental. It shaped Harry's approach to communication, empathy, and self-awareness. He began to articulate his needs more clearly, understanding that vulnerability was both a strength and a potential source of conflict. Conversations with Meghan often revealed his growth, his ability to express fears, insecurities, and hopes with honesty, while also recognizing the importance of boundaries and mutual respect. These skills, honed through previous heartbreak with Chelsea, became essential tools in navigating a relationship that carried both personal and public significance. Yet, emotional turmoil persisted. Harry grappled with guilt, questions of what if, and the tension between honoring past love and embracing present opportunities. Nights of solitude were often filled with introspection, recollections of laughter and tears, and the quiet ache of unresolved feelings. Chelsea, having once been central to his emotional world, remained a touchstone, a reminder of authenticity, passion, and the challenges of sustaining love within a highly scrutinized life. Harry's ability to confront these emotions, rather than suppress them, reflected a maturity shaped by experience and a willingness to engage with the complexities of human connection. At times, Harry questioned the broader implications of his choices. How much of his path was determined by destiny, duty, or circumstance? To what extent did personal happiness align with familial expectations or societal judgment? These reflections were not merely theoretical. They were lived realities that influenced every decision, from private conversations to public appearances. Harry's capacity for self-reflection, informed by love lost and love found, became a defining feature of his emotional journey, guiding his interactions and shaping the contours of his relationship with Meghan. This chapter of Harry's life underscores the universality of human emotion, even within the extraordinary confines of royalty. Heartbreak, longing, and the search for authentic connection transcend status, reminding viewers that even princes face dilemmas familiar to ordinary people. Harry's willingness to confront his past, learn from it, and carry those lessons forward demonstrates the resilience and introspection necessary to navigate love amidst pressure, expectation, and scrutiny. In examining Harry's conflicted heart, we gain insight not only into his personal journey, but also into the broader narrative of human attachment, sacrifice, and growth. The interplay between memory, longing, and present choice creates a tapestry of emotion that is both relatable and extraordinary. For Harry, This period was less about closure and more about understanding, acknowledging the significance of Chelsea Davy in his life, while simultaneously committing to forge a meaningful future with Meghan, informed by experience, reflection, and the enduring hope for love that is both genuine and resilient. The moment Meghan Markle entered Prince Harry's life, it was impossible to ignore the sudden shift in his world. There was a spark, a tangible electricity that seemed to ripple through even the most routine of days. Unlike previous relationships, Meghan arrived fully formed in the public eye. A successful actress, known for her intelligence, charisma, and humanitarian spirit, but also someone who carried the weight of her own complex life experiences. For Harry, this was both exhilarating and intimidating. He had been navigating personal and familial expectations for years, and suddenly, a new dimension of possibility appeared, accompanied by inevitable challenges. From the very beginning, Meghan's presence was magnetic. Friends and insiders described Harry as unusually captivated, his attention and energy visibly altered in her company. Unlike past infatuations, there was an immediate sense of intellectual and emotional connection, a meeting of minds that went beyond surface charm. Conversations reportedly stretched late into the night, covering everything from global issues and charitable ambitions to personal philosophies and childhood memories. For Harry, accustomed to a life punctuated by formal engagements and structured routines, these moments of deep connection were intoxicating, a breath of fresh air that offered both intimacy and understanding. However, this new chapter was not without its struggles. The scrutiny surrounding Meghan's every move was intense from the outset. The media dissected her past relationships, career choices, and personal history with a fervor that few could endure. Headlines alternated between adulation and vitriol, often presenting Harry with a choice he had never faced before: embrace love in the public eye, fully aware of the risks, or retreat into the familiar, but emotionally barren, safety of detachment. The couple faced relentless attention, and every public appearance, comment, or gesture became fodder for analysis. For Harry, this was reminiscent of earlier pressures, yet amplified exponentially by Meghan's celebrity status and the heightened media frenzy surrounding their union. The struggle was not purely external. Internally, Harry wrestled with guilt, lingering feelings for Chelsea, and the complex emotions of moving forward with someone new. Love, he realized, was rarely simple, especially when past heartbreaks lingered like shadows over the present. Each interaction with Meghan carried the potential for profound joy, yet simultaneously reminded him of the fragility of relationships in his unique position. He had seen firsthand how the intersection of personal desire and public expectation could erode even the strongest of bonds. The lessons from Chelsea's chapter of his life weighed heavily as he cautiously navigated this budding romance. Despite the challenges, Harry was drawn to Meghan's authenticity and drive. She approached the world with a sense of purpose, often challenging convention, advocating for causes she believed in, and demonstrating resilience in the face of criticism. For Harry, who had experienced the rigid expectations of royal life firsthand, Meghan's confidence and independence were both refreshing and empowering. She did not conform to preordained scripts. Instead, she carved her own path and invited him to consider new possibilities for love, partnership, and even self-expression. This dynamic, while exhilarating, required Harry to confront his own assumptions and fears. Observers noted that the early stages of Harry and Meghan's relationship were marked by a delicate balancing act. Public appearances demanded poise, charm, and diplomacy, while private interactions required vulnerability, openness, and trust. The tension between these spheres created both excitement and strain. Every glance, touch, or word was scrutinized, yet in private, the couple reportedly found solace in each other's presence, a temporary sanctuary from the relentless gaze of the world. For Harry, these moments were crucial, reminders that genuine connection could exist even amidst extraordinary pressure. Yet, the specter of comparison with Chelsea remained ever present. Harry's memories of past love were vivid, a reference point against which he measured his experiences with Meghan. He acknowledged that no relationship existed in a vacuum. Each new chapter was informed by the past. The contrast between Chelsea's quiet intimacy and Meghan's bold presence prompted introspection. Could love thrive when intertwined with public spectacle? Could the lessons learned from past heartbreak guide him in cultivating a more resilient, authentic partnership? These questions lingered, shaping his decisions and interactions as the relationship evolved. Public perception added another layer of complexity. Fans and critics alike were quick to draw parallels between Meghan and Chelsea, often pitting one against the other in commentary that ranged from superficial comparisons to deeply personal critiques. Harry, aware of the media's influence, faced the constant challenge of protecting both Meghan and his own emotional well-being. He understood that relationships were not merely private affairs when lived under public scrutiny, yet he also recognized the importance of asserting his agency in matters of the heart. This tension between public expectation and personal desire became a defining feature of their early romance. The couple's early experiences together revealed both promise and vulnerability. Harry was confronted with the exhilarating intensity of new love, while also grappling with the potential pitfalls of blending personal happiness with public attention. Meghan's resilience and grace in navigating this landscape impressed him, yet he remained acutely aware of the stakes. Love, he realized, required courage, not only to open one's heart, but to withstand the relentless judgment and intrusion that inevitably followed. Harry's reflections during this period illustrate the intersection of history, emotion, and choice. Past experiences with Chelsea informed his understanding of intimacy, communication, and emotional resilience. Meghan's entrance into his life introduced both possibility and challenge, demanding that he reconcile desire with prudence, passion with responsibility. Each day brought opportunities for growth, risk, and the potential for profound connection, yet also reminders of the fragility inherent in love that exists under a global spotlight. Ultimately, the spark between Harry and Meghan was undeniable, a catalyst for change that would reshape his emotional landscape. Their early interactions revealed both compatibility and tension, highlighting the delicate balance between private affection and public scrutiny. Harry's journey toward understanding, embracing, and protecting this connection required introspection, courage, and the ability to navigate complex emotional terrain. It was a chapter marked by both exhilaration and struggle, a testament to the challenges of pursuing genuine love in a world that observes, judges, and often interferes. This period set the stage for the unfolding story of Harry and Meghan, illustrating the delicate interplay of past heartbreak, present passion, and the relentless pressures of life in the public eye. The entrance of Meghan Markle into Harry's life was more than a romantic encounter. It was a transformative event that challenged assumptions, rekindled hope, and demanded a re-evaluation of priorities, identity, and the meaning of love in a world where personal choice is often entangled with duty, expectation, and public scrutiny. As soon as news of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's budding relationship became public, the media frenzy ignited with unprecedented intensity. It was as if every lens, every microphone, every tabloid had been trained on the couple from the very first hint of romance. In a world where privacy is a luxury few royals can afford, the stakes were immediately high, and the scrutiny relentless. Harry, who had grown up under the unyielding gaze of the press, was no stranger to media intrusion, but the presence of Meghan, an American actress with her own existing public profile, introduced a new, volatile dynamic. The coverage was polarized from the outset. Admirers praised the pair, citing the progressive nature of their union and Meghan's commitment to humanitarian causes. Critics, however, were swift and harsh. Headlines alternated between celebration and condemnation, sometimes within the same day. Meghan was dissected in ways Harry had witnessed with other partners, but amplified tenfold by the combination of her celebrity status, racial identity, and outspoken nature. Public opinion became a battleground, with each article, tweet, or news segment acting as ammunition in an ongoing war of perception. Royal insiders noted Harry's heightened sensitivity during this period. He was protective of Meghan, acutely aware of the vitriol that could affect her both emotionally and physically. Friends described him pacing, phone in hand, reading news articles aloud to gauge her reaction, sometimes visibly frustrated at the distortions, or outright fabrications. The constant barrage of commentary became a shared burden, placing strain on the relationship while simultaneously forging a deeper bond. In private moments, they would discuss strategies for managing attention, seeking solace in shared understanding and mutual support. One of the most significant challenges was the interplay between public expectation and personal autonomy. The royal family operates within a framework of strict protocol, tradition, and symbolic responsibility. Harry, who had spent decades internalizing these norms, now faced the tension of defending personal choices against institutional expectations. His relationship with Meghan represented a departure from precedent, a challenge to established norms, both in terms of her background and her outspoken personality. Every public appearance, charitable endeavor, or casual remark became a potential flashpoint, a test of their resilience and adaptability under the microscope of public opinion. The media scrutiny extended beyond mere commentary. Paparazzi followed the couple relentlessly, sometimes crossing legal boundaries in pursuit of a candid photograph or sensational story. Meghan, accustomed to navigating Hollywood's attention, brought a level of savvy to these encounters, but even she could not fully anticipate the relentless intensity of global media interest. For Harry, watching someone he cared deeply for endure invasive coverage was both infuriating and disheartening. He found himself reflecting on his own childhood experiences, where the loss of privacy and constant surveillance had left indelible marks on his psyche. The contrast was stark. He had become protective not only of Meghan's physical safety, but also of her emotional well-being. Within the palace, conversations about the relationship were delicate and, at times, tense. Advisors and family members expressed concerns about the potential fallout from public opinion and media portrayal. There were warnings about narratives being shaped, reputations being affected, and the long-term implications of marrying outside traditional expectations. For Harry, these discussions were a reminder of the broader context in which his personal choices existed. Every gesture, every declaration of love, had repercussions far beyond the private sphere, influencing perceptions of the monarchy and shaping historical narratives. Amid the scrutiny, Harry also had to contend with comparisons to his past relationships, particularly Chelsea Davy. The press was relentless in drawing contrasts, often framing the narrative as a replacement rather than a new beginning. This fueled insecurities, particularly for Meghan, who was already navigating cultural differences, racial dynamics, and the pressures of entering a family with centuries of tradition. For Harry, reconciling the love he felt for Meghan with the lingering influence of public expectation and media comparison required careful negotiation and emotional resilience. The pressure was further compounded by social media, a platform that allowed instantaneous global commentary. Twitter, Instagram, and online forums became arenas for debate, speculation, and often outright hostility. The couple faced coordinated smear campaigns, conspiracy theories, and relentless trolling. Every appearance at a charity event, every interview, and every public statement was scrutinized, often taken out of context and amplified across platforms. The mental and emotional toll of constant observation was profound, highlighting the need for strategies that could protect not only their personal lives, but also their public images. Harry and Meghan's response to the media storm was multifaceted. They sought to control the narrative through selective interviews, public appearances, and charitable work that reflected their shared values. The couple demonstrated an acute awareness that engagement with the press could be both a tool and a weapon. Choosing when to speak, what to reveal, and how to frame their story became a delicate art. Each decision carried weight, influencing not only public perception but also the dynamics within the royal family and broader institutional expectations. Despite their efforts, the pressure sometimes led to tension and misunderstanding. Harry found himself navigating a delicate balance between defending Meghan, asserting his own independence, and maintaining loyalty to his family. This balancing act was emotionally exhausting, requiring constant vigilance and self-reflection. The media's portrayal often simplified complex emotions into sound bites or sensationalized narratives, creating challenges that neither Meghan nor Harry had fully encountered in their previous lives. This chapter in Harry's journey illustrates the collision between personal love and public scrutiny, a dynamic that shaped not only his relationship with Meghan, but also his evolving sense of identity and agency. The media storm was not merely a backdrop. It was an active, forceful participant in their story, influencing decisions, emotions, and perceptions. Harry had to navigate this landscape with courage, strategy, and emotional intelligence, drawing lessons from past heartbreaks while forging a path toward a relationship that could withstand the weight of global attention. Ultimately, the media scrutiny and royal expectations tested Harry and Meghan's bond in profound ways. The couple faced relentless external pressure, the challenge of navigating tradition and expectation, and the psychological weight of public scrutiny. Yet, these trials also revealed the strength of their connection, the depth of their commitment, and the resilience required to pursue love under extraordinary circumstances. For Harry, this period was a crucible, shaping not only his relationship with Meghan, but also his understanding of himself, love, and the boundaries of personal freedom within the glare of the world's gaze. Behind the glamorous public appearances and carefully staged photographs, Prince Harry's life was a tapestry woven with complex emotions, private struggles, and personal sacrifices. The world saw a prince who smiled for cameras, attended charity galas, and navigated royal duties with poise. But beneath the polished exterior, Harry wrestled with the weight of expectation, emotional turbulence, and the lingering pain of past heartbreak. The period following the media frenzy surrounding his relationship with Meghan Markle was particularly intense, marked by an internal battle between duty and desire, love and loyalty, tradition and personal freedom. From the earliest days of their courtship, Harry recognized that loving Meghan would require sacrifices he had never fully confronted before. The very nature of their relationship, romantic, public, and inherently scrutinized, demanded a careful negotiation between his own needs and the pressures imposed by a centuries-old institution. Each moment of intimacy was tempered by the awareness that even the smallest gesture could be misrepresented or amplified by a watchful press. Privacy became an almost sacred commodity, yet one that was increasingly unattainable. Harry often found himself walking a delicate tightrope, trying to protect both himself and Meghan from the fallout of unwanted attention. The ghosts of past relationships, particularly his deep connection with Chelsea Davy, lingered in these moments of reflection. Harry had loved Chelsea with an intensity that had left lasting impressions on his heart and mind. The relationship had ended not because of a lack of feeling, but because of circumstances shaped by the pressures of royal duty and external expectations. For Harry, the memory of losing Chelsea remained a painful reminder of the fragility of love when entwined with public scrutiny and familial pressure. As he navigated his bond with Meghan, these memories informed his actions, his fears, and his deep desire to shield his heart from repeating the mistakes of the past. At the same time, the emotional burden of navigating a relationship that was constantly dissected by the public took a tangible toll. Harry experienced moments of anxiety and frustration, often feeling torn between personal happiness and the obligations expected of him as a royal. Long hours were spent strategizing over public statements, balancing appearances, and considering the broader implications of each decision. This careful orchestration, though necessary, often left little room for emotional spontaneity or genuine self-expression. The prince's internal world became a careful choreography of restraint, reflection, and anticipation. The pressure extended to Meghan as well, and Harry's protective instincts were constantly engaged. He witnessed the toll that media attacks and public criticism took on her, sometimes observing changes in her mood, confidence, and sense of security. Watching someone he loved endure these challenges created a profound sense of helplessness. He realized that love alone could not shield them from external forces. Strategies had to be developed to preserve their emotional health, their privacy, and the integrity of their bond. This meant negotiating boundaries, limiting exposure, and at times, making painful compromises about what they could and could not share with the world. Family dynamics further complicated the emotional landscape. Harry's relationships with other members of the royal family, particularly his father and brother, were strained by both historical patterns and the challenges introduced by his partnership with Meghan. Conversations that should have been supportive often carried undercurrents of tension, unspoken expectations, and subtle disapproval. Harry was acutely aware that his personal choices had ripple effects throughout the family, influencing perceptions, allegiances, and the broader image of the monarchy. Every decision felt heavy, weighted with both personal and institutional significance. One of the most profound challenges Harry faced was the negotiation between authenticity and expectation. He wanted to live a life defined by genuine love, emotional honesty, and personal fulfillment, yet the structures around him demanded careful curation of behavior and public image. Small actions, expressions of affection, casual outings, even social media interactions, could be misinterpreted or sensationalized, creating tension between the private self and the public persona. This duality was emotionally exhausting, requiring constant vigilance and self-awareness. Harry often reflected on the psychological cost of existing in two worlds simultaneously, one of human vulnerability and the other of public scrutiny. In addition to emotional strain, Harry encountered physical manifestations of stress. Sleepless nights, persistent tension, and heightened sensitivity to criticism became routine. Friends and confidants observed that he occasionally withdrew, seeking solitude as a means of processing complex feelings. These moments, though necessary, contributed to a sense of isolation. A reminder that even amidst affection and support, certain burdens could not be shared or easily alleviated. Emotional resilience became both a necessity and a skill, cultivated through introspection, meditation, and selective reliance on trusted allies. Yet, despite these challenges, Harry's commitment to Meghan remained steadfast. Love, in this context, was not merely romantic. It was an anchor amid chaos, a source of motivation, and a foundation for navigating the turbulent landscape of public life. He understood that emotional honesty, even when painful, was essential for sustaining a meaningful connection. Discussions about boundaries, personal history, and long-term goals became central to their partnership, allowing them to navigate challenges with transparency and mutual respect. Harry recognized that love required courage. Not only the courage to commit, but also the courage to confront past wounds, to negotiate institutional expectations, and to preserve personal integrity in a world that often sought to erode it. The emotional journey also involved reconciling identity with obligation. Harry had spent decades being defined by royal expectations, media narratives, and public perception. Engaging in a relationship that challenged these definitions required a profound reevaluation of self. Who was he if not the dutiful son, the attentive brother, or the obedient prince? Could he exist authentically as a partner, as an individual with desires and vulnerabilities, without fear of judgment or reprisal? These questions were not abstract. They influenced daily choices, long-term plans, and the emotional climate of his relationship. Through all this, Harry developed coping mechanisms and strategies for maintaining equilibrium. Trust in Meghan, open communication, selective engagement with the media, and mindful prioritization of personal well-being became central tenets of their approach. He learned that vulnerability could coexist with strength, that emotional expression was not weakness, and that love required continuous, conscious effort in the face of external pressures. These lessons, hard-earned and deeply personal, shaped his approach to relationships, public life, and personal fulfillment. Ultimately, this period in Harry's life reveals the profound human cost of love and duty intersecting with public scrutiny. The sacrifices, emotional struggles, and private turmoil he endured were inseparable from the circumstances of being a modern royal in a hyper-connected world. Yet, these struggles also underscore his resilience, emotional intelligence, and capacity for profound commitment. Harry's journey demonstrates that love, when forged in adversity, requires not only passion but also courage, strategic awareness, and the willingness to confront one's deepest vulnerabilities. This chapter illuminates the hidden complexities behind the prince's public persona, showing that personal sacrifice and emotional turbulence are intrinsic to navigating love under the weight of legacy, expectation, and relentless observation. Harry's private struggles were not moments of weakness. They were crucibles shaping his character, defining his capacity for love, and preparing him for the difficult choices that lay ahead. For Prince Harry, love was never a simple equation. From a young age, He was acutely aware that his personal choices carried consequences far beyond his own life. Every friendship, every relationship, every gesture of affection was under the microscope, analyzed for what it revealed about him, the monarchy, and the future of the royal institution. Yet even amidst these pressures, Harry experienced moments of profound, human connection, none more impactful than his time with Chelsea Davy. Their bond was not just a fleeting romance. It was a connection that stirred something deeper, something that reached into his very identity. He recognized early on that what he shared with Chelsea was rare, fragile, and yet incredibly powerful. The problem was that love and duty were often in conflict. Chelsea was not born into royal circles, did not share the same social status, and did not conform to the expectations laid out for a future consort in Harry's world. Each time they attempted to bridge the gap between their lives, external pressures intensified. The media scrutinized their every interaction, turning private moments into public commentary. Family expectations whispered caution, subtly suggesting that Harry's choices should align with legacy and tradition rather than personal desire. The tension between what Harry wanted and what he was expected to pursue became a recurring battle, a delicate tug-of-war that often left him feeling torn, frustrated, and conflicted. In his conversations with close confidants, Harry admitted that he often felt like he was living two separate lives. On one hand, there was the man who craved normalcy, intimacy, and the freedom to love without consequence. On the other, there was the prince, tasked with upholding tradition, maintaining decorum, and navigating a world where every action was interpreted and judged. The friction between these identities created a constant internal struggle. He longed for a love that was genuine, unencumbered, and reciprocal, yet he was perpetually aware that pursuing that love came at a cost, sometimes to his reputation, sometimes to his career, and sometimes to the very relationships he cherished within his family. Chelsea Davy represented the kind of love that was authentic, unpolished, and intensely emotional. Harry often reflected on the memories they shared, quiet evenings away from the public eye, spontaneous trips that allowed them to exist without scrutiny, and conversations that revealed the depth of their understanding and affection. With Chelsea, Harry experienced a sense of belonging, a feeling that he could be himself without constraint or expectation. Every smile, every laugh, every intimate moment reinforced the realization that this was not just infatuation. It was a connection that touched his core, a love that challenged the very structure of his world. Yet duty weighed heavily on him. As the second son of a future king, Harry was bound by rules, expectations, and traditions that did not always account for the complexities of human emotion. Decisions about relationships were never purely personal. They had implications for the monarchy, for public perception, and for the legacy he would leave behind. Each interaction with Chelsea was shadowed by the awareness that the world would interpret it, comment on it, and potentially use it against him. The juxtaposition of his private desires and public obligations created an almost unbearable pressure, one that forced Harry to question whether love could ever truly coexist with duty. Family influence added another layer of complexity. While some members of the royal family expressed genuine support for Harry's happiness, others subtly reinforced the boundaries of expectation. Discussions that might have been ordinary in any other context became loaded with significance. Choosing a partner was not simply a matter of affection. It became a negotiation between personal fulfillment and institutional propriety. Harry understood that his actions could have ramifications for centuries-old traditions, a realization that amplified the stakes of every decision. He grappled with questions that few could truly understand. Could he follow his heart without undermining his responsibilities? Was it possible to be loyal to love while remaining faithful to duty? The turning point came when Harry began to sense that the pressures surrounding his relationship with Chelsea were insurmountable. Despite the depth of his feelings, the external forces, media intrusion, societal expectation, and subtle family discouragement made it increasingly difficult to sustain the connection in a healthy, private manner. Breakups became inevitable, and the separation, though painful, was a reluctant concession to circumstance rather than desire. Harry would later reflect on these moments with a mixture of regret, sorrow, and understanding, recognizing that the challenges he faced were not reflections of inadequacy, but of the unique position he occupied in the world. When Meghan Markle entered his life, the landscape shifted. Their connection, while emotionally significant, emerged under different circumstances, shaped by timing, context, and the evolving pressures surrounding Harry. Meghan represented an opportunity for companionship, partnership, and support, yet the shadow of his past love with Chelsea remained ever present. In private, Harry often wrestled with comparisons, not in a superficial sense, but as a means of reconciling his emotional past with his present. He acknowledged to himself that while his feelings for Meghan were real, they were not the same as the deep, formative love he had experienced with Chelsea. The awareness that he had once loved differently, more profoundly, added layers of complexity to his emotional experience. Navigating this emotional terrain required resilience, self-reflection, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Harry had to ask himself difficult questions. Could he fully embrace a new love while honoring the past? Was it fair to Meghan to carry the weight of unresolved feelings for Chelsea? How could he balance personal fulfillment with the expectations placed upon him by his role, his family, and the world? These questions were not theoretical. They shaped his interactions, his choices, and the trajectory of his personal life. In essence, Harry's journey reveals the intricate dance between love and duty, a recurring theme in the lives of those born into institutions larger than themselves. His experiences underscore the reality that love is rarely straightforward when entwined with public expectation and historical legacy. The battles he faced were not simply about choosing between two people. They were about choosing how to live authentically in a world that demanded conformity. Love, in this context, became an act of courage, a deliberate decision to pursue emotional truth despite formidable obstacles. Harry's reflections on Chelsea and Meghan illuminate a profound truth. Human emotion is complex, layered, and often contradictory. The heart remembers deeply, even when circumstances force difficult decisions. The bonds we form, the losses we endure, and the loves we carry shape our understanding of ourselves and the choices we make. For Harry, the lessons learned from loving Chelsea informed his subsequent relationships, guiding him through challenges with empathy, self-awareness, and a commitment to preserving integrity in the face of adversity. This chapter also highlights the delicate balance between personal desire and public responsibility. Harry's journey was emblematic of a larger truth about human experience. Navigating the intersection of private love and public duty requires not only emotional insight, but also strategic awareness, patience, and courage. Every decision carried consequences, every choice shaped the narrative, and every act of love was both a personal triumph and a potential source of conflict. Ultimately, Harry's battle between love and duty was not simply a story of heartbreak or missed opportunity. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the enduring power of authentic connection, and the courage required to navigate life on one's own terms. His experiences underscore the reality that love, when pursued honestly and thoughtfully, demands both emotional vulnerability and unwavering strength. In the crucible of his unique circumstances, Harry learned that the heart, though vulnerable, can guide us toward authenticity, fulfillment, and meaningful connection. Even when the world insists on boundaries, scrutiny, and expectation. Even as the years passed and life moved forward, Chelsea Davy remained an indelible presence in Prince Harry's mind. The world might have assumed that after moving on, he had closed that chapter of his life, yet the human heart rarely forgets its earliest, most profound connections. Memories of Chelsea came unbidden, in quiet moments when the noise of royal duties faded, when the pressure of public life eased, and when Harry found himself alone with his thoughts. These recollections were not mere nostalgia. They were vivid, emotionally charged reminders of a love that had once shaped him in ways few could understand. In private conversations, Harry admitted that Chelsea's influence lingered far longer than he had anticipated. There were faces that blurred in the crowd, but hers remained sharp, detailed, and impossible to forget. He remembered the first time he met her, the way her laughter filled a room, the intensity of her gaze, and the sense that she could see beyond the trappings of royalty to the man beneath. That initial connection, raw and unguarded, set the stage for a relationship that, while turbulent at times, was also transformative. Chelsea had shown him aspects of love, companionship, and emotional intimacy that were rare in his highly scrutinized world.